Hey internets, it's Jake from Mini Terrain Domain, and this is Dawnbringers, Heart of the Nightfang Spire, Season 4, Episode 21, The Dragon Key. This is the second to the last episode of Season 4. I've been teasing for weeks that we're getting close to the end, and I was only recently able to figure out that this is, in fact, the second to the last episode. Unfortunately, Scotty is not with us tonight, dealing with some personal, something personal. So our thoughts are with Scotty, and hopefully he will be back with us next week for the finale. And probably if not everybody can be here, we'll wait until everybody can be here. That's the way you do a finale. We're going to do a couple of super quick announcements here, and then we're going to do our recap, and we are going to get back into this session, springboarding off exactly where we left off with a very traumatic and emotional situation last week. So Right off the bat, we're going to take a look down below the feet of our good friend Yesferatu in the lower left-hand corner, where we see those three logos that we talk about every stream. First off, Jasper's Game Day, a wonderful partner, fantastic organization founded here in my own state of Michigan by Fenway the Teen DM. I've been a proud partner with Jasper's Game Day for going on 3 years, I think. You can type !Jasper in the chat, as Jeremy has done for us, to bring up a direct donation link. Jasper's Game Day, their entire organization is dedicated to raising awareness and education, and ultimately the prevention of suicide through tabletop gaming. Any funds raised are immediately turned around and put back into communities where those funds are raised to benefit things like the National Suicide Lifeline, the Teen Suicide Lifeline, education programs, and more. Please do consider giving to Jasper's Game Day to support that incredible organization. Another way that you can support Jasper's, of course, is through our partnership with Initiative Coffee Company's Help Action, where we have created Metade Roast Coffee. It is a medium Brazilian and Peruvian roast coffee that Big Bearded Nerd and I personally taste tested and selected. For every 12-ounce bag of this coffee that you purchase, $3 of that is going to go directly to Jasper's Game Day to benefit that fantastic cause. The third icon that you see down there in the corner is for Talon and Claw, our stream sponsor. If you type !MTD Claw in the chat, you'll have a direct link to the Talon and Claw Etsy store where you can pick out your favorite dice accessories. I just got my email that they are going to be delivering the Whiskey Barrel Dice Vault very soon. And I'm very excited about that. But they have a ton of stuff that they are constantly working on. I love that he works with this stuff called Spectraply wood. It's what all of the LGBTQI vaults are made out of. He just released today, I think, the pics of an all pink vault that you can get, a pink stained wood. Absolutely incredible. So check them out, and when you do go to checkout, be sure to use code MTDClaw to get 10% off your order, and also, by doing so, help out Mini Terrain Domain. Looking in the lower right-hand corner under Jeremy there, you see the D&D Beyond logo, because D&D Beyond has generously granted us insider access, and these days, I live and die by D&D Beyond. It makes my game prep so much easier 99% of the time. And it's so easy to have my books with me on the go. They're not a sponsor. I really like D&D Beyond. So thank you to D&D Beyond for granting us that access. Domain Dice. I feel kind of weird promoting Domain Dice because you all were so generous last week. The Dawnbringers have 141. I had to create a new freeform text overlay just to accommodate for the extra Domain Dice. But it is a new month, which means subscriptions have rolled over. And while we did briefly get over 100 subscribers last week, we're back down just shy of 90 subscribers. So when you use your free Twitch Prime subscription to subscribe to your channel of choice, which presumably is Mini Terrain Domain, that earns the Dawnbringers a domain die, along with a 500-bit cheer, a $5 tip, all of those kind of things, resubs, all of that good stuff. We appreciate all of that. The last thing that I want to say before we get going here is that we talk about this always. It kind of piggybacks off of the mission of Jasper's Game Day, but it is quite simply this: you matter. That's all there is to it. You might not believe it. You might be struggling with that, but you need to know that your presence here on this earth makes a difference. And if you are struggling with that, know that there is help out there, and that you should have no shame whatsoever about reaching out for help. You can type in our chat anytime, whether we're streaming or not, !help, and bring up the phone numbers and text numbers and web link that just popped up there when Jeremy did that for us. That information is also going along the bottom of the screen right now and all throughout our stream. So be sure to use those numbers, use that website. No matter where you are in the world, help is available to you. And you have no reason to be ashamed to seek out that help. With that, I think it's time for us to play some Dungeons and Dragons. All right. For the longest time, the Dawnbringers have been making their way through the Nightfang Spire, knowing that somewhere in this tower there is a heart that they must destroy. There is a vampire that they must destroy, the vampire Gulthias. They have been facing off against his minions, against his traps, against his machinations. And as they've grown deeper and deeper into the spire and then down into the catacombs, it has gotten deadlier and deadlier, particularly for one dwarf by the name of Talmud, who increasingly flirts with death, and very recently spent a very short period of time actually dead after fighting a tombstone golem who used an ability called Slay the Living. When he punched him so hard he killed him. But in the process of searching through the catacombs, the Dawnbringers have managed to find successfully the 4 pieces of the dragon key that they were told they needed in order to get into the core of the spire, where supposedly Gulthias and the heart reside. Very recently, they fought the tombstone golem that bore as its face a broken section of a sarcophagus bearing an half elven, half dragon likeness that everybody has now recognized to be that of Calamicus Cavatina, Cantriel's father, who she has learned was interred here. Though he refused Gulthias as a sign of respect, Gulthias entombed him here in the catacombs. After after Talmud fell, Griveth quickly rushed to Talmud's aid as the tombstone golem collapsed into rubble, and was able to bring Talmud back to pull him from the clutches of death, while Cantriel cradled the dead dwarf in her arms. And as his eyes flutter open, she uses some of her healing magics to restore some of his life force. And this is where we pick up with the Dawnbringers, as Talmud is just gaining consciousness. The magic, the glowing magic from Cantriel's hands has just faded as she has healed Talmud. Griveth has just pleaded and said, "We saw what you went through, but we need you here. We need you here with us." The tombstone that bore Talmud's name and today's date, that became inscribed upon his death, lies in shattered ruins at Drown's feet, where he drove his staff into it. But atop the rubble of the broken remains of the tombstone guardian, which is little more than crumbled bits of stone. Lying atop this, partially buried, is the broken fragment of the sarcophagus bearing the half-elven, half-dragon visage of Cantriel's father. What would you like to do?
So if I remember correctly, Griveth is literally got Talmud in his arms. Cantriel
Cantriel is cradling Griveth.
Okay.
No.
Time out.
No.
Redact.
Yeah.
I thought Cantriel had his head.
No, Cantriel was cradling him.
Got Talmud.
Okay.
And Griveth was basically holding, like, had his hands on his head, and was casting the spell that way.
Talmud.
I'm all right. I think. He kind of like holds his ribs, like rolls over.
She'll like gently put him down, like next to her, knowing this is more his style.
What? He kind of like props himself up on his elbows. What happened this time?
You had an interesting encounter with my father's tombstone.
This thing killed you.
Yeah, I think
he kind of looks at the pile of rubble. Oh. Okay. So we found your dad then.
At least his visage.
I've decided I don't really care much for this place. I'd like to finish what we came here to do so that we can get the hells out of here.
That's fair. Though you might want to rest a little bit. You've been through a lot.
I think you're right. It's probably.
Can you create
best.
that shelter again, Cantriel?
I don't know.
Cantriel.
Could we though? Timing wise though.
Well, keep in mind that probably maybe a half an hour to 45 minutes has passed since you awoke from a long rest.
Yeah, we could only do a short rest.
Yeah.
But Cantriel, as Drown says this, and you just sort of instinctively kind of look around and get a sense of your surroundings, you look at this hallway that you're in that was about 50 feet long. Gerithan is sort of standing off to one side, having just stepped to the side of this close Dawnbringers very personal emotional situation you were all in. Gerithan sort of stood off to the side, flipping a coin. You're in a 20-foot wide hall, the far southern end of which is a doorway that's been broken open by this tombstone guardian. All around this hallway are the broken remains of doors on crypts. As the tombstone guardian was making its way down the hall, it was smashing into the walls and breaking apart these doors. You can see into some of these crypts, and in them you see almost every single one of them has this now familiar decor of black, red, and white tiles, draconic imagery across the walls and the ceiling, bearing though these, what you can see of these, they look a little more ornate than the previous ones you've seen, less touched by time, though you see in each one that pieces of the sarcophagi have been broken apart, most likely claimed by this tombstone guardian at some point. But as you look over, glancing around, and you look over to where Gerithan stands, you see just past him the open door of one of these crypts, the interior of which is not like the others. This crypt's design stands in stark contrast to those of the other elite cultists. Looking inside, you can see that the wall opposite this door, the mosaic tiles actually depict a vast library in near realistic detail. The shelves painted with stunningly detailed books. You see a white marble with gold inlaid sarcophagus in the center of the room, and you can just make out that a section of the lid of the sarcophagus is broken away.
Tell you what, keep an eye on him, make sure he rests. I have to do something. And she'll get up and brush off her skirt, and she's actually going to go over to the pile left over from the golem.
Mm-hmm.
And how tall is the pile? Is it like massively high, or?
It, at this point, because it was broken when it was destroyed, it collapsed into mostly small rubble, a little more than gravel. It kind of did that thing that a big pile of rubble would do, where it sort of spreads out a bit, scatters in the hallway. I mean, it's good sized, but at its highest point, it's probably only a couple feet high.
Okay, so I don't have to climb up it. Yeah, she'll go over and pick up the piece that has her father's face on it.
So when Cantriel says, watch after him, Thorgarn, who's been kneeling by, Talmud's side, like, he looks down and realizes like he's still clutching Talmud's hand, and he's got this very agonized and distraught look on his face. He honestly hadn't said a word since Talmud fell. He almost seems unable to, and like casually puts Talmud's hand down, like steps up, or backs away and grabs the hammer, but just keeps looking back in Talmud's direction, almost as if to expect him to not be moving anymore.
Cantriel, this piece of sarcophagus lid is unwieldy and heavy. Go ahead and give me a strength athletics check just to see what happens.
That's her worst. It is her utter worst. Oh, interesting. Okay, so even with a -1, that's an 18.
You begin to pull at it. Your knuckles pop a little bit at the strain of how heavy this is. But you have a determination. And you shift your feet, you bend at the knees, you brace yourself. And with a heave, it comes free of the gravel. It's heavy. You wouldn't be able to carry this for a long ways, but you're able to hold on to it in a way, because it's kind of broken at an uneven angle. You're kind of almost cradling it to your body, and it's only about 20 feet away to the inside of this crypt.
She walks it over to Drown.
So he's probably just sort of slunk down. I guess, did we go back into a chamber, or are we just sort of plopped
still in the hallway
where we all stopped? Okay.
For sure.
This
is literally right after the
Right.
fight and after Talmud was revivified.
Right. So he's probably just kind of moved over to the side wall between two of the crypt doors or whatever's nearby. Just a solid piece of wall, not too far from Talmud and Thorgarn. Has just kind of put his back to the wall and slunk down and is just sort of sprawled. And kind of looks up a little bit distracted or bemused as Cantriel approaches.
Break this.
Hold out his hands and take the stone from her.
Crush
Turn
it
it around.
so it's nothing.
He turns it around, looks at it, studies it silently for a few moments, looks up and just kind of doesn't say anything, but he watches her a moment just to see if there's any other reaction, changes her mind, anything like that, for probably a 3 count. Then pushes himself up to his feet, lifts it over his head, and slams it, carving face first into the floor, flat.
I imagine Griveth, Talmud, Thorgarn, and maybe even Gerithan, you all maybe start a moment as there's this sudden crashing of stone and you hear the subsequent scattering of rubble as this big chunk of marble hits the ground. It breaks easier than you would have expected a piece of marble to break, but it shatters into many pieces.
He can't use that against me anymore.
Nothing left on your terms.
Thank you.
Are you okay, Cantriel?
She'll glance over to Thorgarn, and her eyes are probably more unnerving than they've been in a long time. They aren't that seafoam green. They're actually a very dark emerald, almost black green at this point. And they're just flashing with anger. And she'll turn on her heel and go into the crypt and walk right over to the books and just start scanning them.
What you see as you walk in, you kind of get the full view of this this crypt chamber. It's basically about 20 feet by 20 feet. The sarcophagus with the broken lid taking up most of the center of this space. The wall opposite the door, while it looks near realistic, it is painted mosaic tiles depicting a vast library teeming with books of elven and draconic lore, history. Many of the titles seem familiar, or at least seem like something that if your father didn't own them, he would have liked to have owned them. The other 2 walls in this chamber, to the left and to the right, depict scenes of a vibrant Feywild landscape. Brilliantly colored leaves and grasses, a sky either at dawn or just at sunset. Brilliant shades of pinks and purples fading into oranges and yellows. Dark clouds, mountains in the distance. Immediately
She'll
next
take-
to you is the sarcophagus with the broken piece that was the lid of your father's sarcophagus.
She'd look at the library and then look over to the Feywild. And like it's almost like her eyes are the ones darting back and forth, not so much the eye, or not so much the head shifting back and forth. And she'll take out her rapier, and there's almost like this guttural scream that gets caught in her throat. And she takes the rapier and starts dragging it across the book titles, trying to mar the mosaics and the paint on it.
With the almost primal rage that suddenly takes over, your rapier almost sings with the sound as it drags across the many seams and grout lines of this mosaic tile. And it's not long before you hear, mixing in with it, the sort of light, almost glass-like sound of small mosaic tiles breaking free of the wall and falling to the floor, clattering, some chipping and breaking. However long you wish to carry on, you basically are doing a good job of defacing this wall.
After just a moment of her doing this, Talmud appears in the doorway to the crypt, like half bent over, holding onto his side, and he drags the head of Gerithan over to where she's standing and just lets go of the haft next to her. So it's just basically head down, standing straight up. That'll do much better. And he turns around and he leaves.
Gerithan stands next to you.
She'll drop the rapier and pick up Gerithan. And then turns and swings at the crypt, or the sarcophagus itself. And she goes right for the other side where the face was initially.
You bring Gerithan around. It's heavier than you expected at first. But with your anger, with your rage, you have no problem swinging it around. And the Warhammer, the Maul, does most of the work for you, taking out a big chunk of the marble of the sarcophagus. And you continue swinging the Maul around. How long will you persist at this?
She'll honestly probably keep going until someone stops her or she's exhausted. But everything that's Feywild depiction, she won't touch. That stays pristine.
The sarcophagus and the books, the library?
She goes after that.
I imagine we cut to out in the hallway as everybody sits idly by while we hear these sounds of rage and destruction coming from the other room. Every once in a while, pieces of marble or mosaic tiles skittering out from inside this room across the floor. Whether it's but a moment, 5 minutes, a half hour, you don't know, Cantriel. But at a certain point, the library is not recognizable in the mosaic. Most of the sarcophagus has been smashed to rubble. And you can no longer lift the Maul. You involuntarily sort of slump against the wall, the pristine wall depicting the Feywild. You do have a point of exhaustion. But as you slump to the ground, your back sliding along this Feywild scenery, much of the rubble's kind of skipping across the floor at your feet. The Maul collapsing heavily next to you. You see a few feet away from you your rapier where you dropped it. In and amongst the rubble, as you just sit there breathing heavily from the exertion, feeling the beginnings of what will probably be blisters on your hands, two other objects stand out amidst the rubble. One, halfway between you and your rapier, it's a pair of round, wire-rimmed spectacles. One of the lenses now shattered. These were your father's spectacles. The other, lying partially buried in the newly destroyed sarcophagus rubble, is a silvery chain. There is a amulet, only half of which is visible, but you see this amulet is a rune that is a bizarre combination of Elven and Draconic. You've seen this symbol before. It is carved into the body of the oath bow, but it is not illuminated. The runes, you know, in their combination of languages, form the symbol for Calamicus, your father's name.
She'll sort of let out this long sigh. And it's not even so much getting up as it is crawling and knowing that the mosaic tiles and gravel will be digging into her hands and knees as she gets over to the spectacles first, which she picks up and she just tosses out of the room without even looking back. And then she'll grab a piece of the chain and just slowly pull it out of the rubble and kind of just hold it up in front of her face, watching the pendulum sort of ocean of it.
As you pick it up, well, there's a moment where Gerithan, you see a small set of broken spectacles come flying past you and hit the opposite wall, and then you pull this chain up and the amulet hangs not nearly as heavy as you might have expected for its size. And it sort of twists, and oddly, it seems to be almost as if it's catching the light of the Feywild sun depicted in the mosaics. As it twists and turns, you see this symbol begin to shine with a light of its own. It illuminates in a fiery orange and yellow. And about 10 seconds later, there's just a bright flash. You have no choice but to avert your eyes. You hold the amulet now in your hands. It doesn't even catch any light of any kind. It's just a symbol hanging there.
She drops the amulet on the ground and reaches back and pulls the bow out and looks to the bow to look at the runes.
As you do so, you see the rune stones that have been there since you found the bow. The illuminated rune stone of melody. The rune of Cantriel. The darkened runes of I can't believe I'm blanking on the name of your siblings.
It's Octavio
Octavio and Sonata.
Sonata.
But there, next to Melody's rune, now illuminated, is the rune of Calamicus. You feel different. You have a power, an ability that you did not have before, that you've never had. You have inherited the excuse me, the blood of a Chardalon, the gift of Calamicus. Once per day, you can breathe fire as a dragonborn, as a red dragonborn would. Basically, once a day, you have the fire breath ability.
Because she wasn't salty enough.
And I will note, I will modify the homebrew item, so you have the details of that listed on your character sheet later. But as is in my games, something I stole from Ted, Dragonborn Dragon Breath effects are bonus actions. So this is a bonus action ability.
Okay.
And you understand this ability and the limitations of it as you see this rune illuminated.
She'll pause a moment and sort of like open her mouth and is actually sort of speechless for fear of saying something and actually spewing fire. But then she'll look to her father's rune and sort of gulp a little bit. Papa? To see if he'd appear like her mother does.
Your voice, I imagine, is maybe a bit hoarser than you would have expected. And with all of the broken rubble, most of the mosaic tile on the one wall completely gone, your voice falls a bit hollow in this space. And there is no answer.
She'll just sort of like nod her head to herself, and it's almost like a repetitive motion for about a minute. And then she'll sling the bow back over her shoulder and she'll walk back out to the rest and go over to Thorgarn. The sarcophagus is open. Take what you want.
Okay.
So while all of that was going on, all of the growling, near screaming, crashing, pulverizing stone, shattering tile, all of that, Drown is just sort of sitting there with his eyes closed, like a soldier in a trench sleeping during a shelling. And at one point during the sort of long pause after everything has sort of quieted down right before Cantriel comes out, he opens his eyes, his blank, pupilless eyes, and looks over toward the dwarves. He says, "My past was taken from me. It was consumed. For a long time, I railed against that. But all of you, your pasts consume you. I'm not sure I'm the less fortunate."
There are definitely dark deeds, dark happenings that have surrounded me, surrounded us. Truth be told, there have been days that I would wish it away. we all must walk the path that we're on. Be it our choice, the God's choice, whatever have you. We are who we are. You have made friends and allies here. If retrieving that which was taken from you is a desire, we could certainly set about that. We always need a new quest.
A concern for another day, I think.
Well, finish what we start first.
Drown, for what it's worth. Just because you don't remember what's happened to you before doesn't change the fact that it's made you who you are. The good and the bad. So whatever it was that happened to you, I'm happy that it did.
He just sort of settles back, closes his eyes again.
And you, cousin.
Don't tell me you're going to start worrying about me again, Thorgarn.
Fine. How about I approach it this way? I'm worried about me. Would that make you feel better?
Aye, it would. He kind of like leans over and puts his hand on his shoulder.
There's not many I've met who can do what you do. You are the toughest bastard I've ever come across. And to see you lying there unmoving, like others that I have seen, I am rattled. I am not gifted enough by Moradin to be able to bring my friends back from beyond. And since the time that I've walked in his service, now is the first time that I truly question, am I worthy enough? Am I strong enough? I was helpless to help you. I sat there holding your hand, being unable to do anything. I'm at a loss. What if Griveth fell and someone else? What if?
I'm not the one to answer that, Thorgarn Knight. What if is a question that I've asked myself far too often. I understand not being able to do anything. Way better than you might think. I don't have the answer. But you didn't do nothing, cousin. You were there for me. If it had been my time to pass, you would have been there to help ferry me from one place to the other. And that brings me a comfort. I can't ask anything more of you.
Well, I still question. And I think I have a new path.
That's what makes you you, Thorgarn. He kind of pats him on the shoulder.
I pull you in for a hug. Now, you know and understand. He kind of looks over his shoulder to the chaos going on in the room behind us. Better than I. I've never seen her like this.
Oh. No, it's terrifying, honestly. I hope she's all right, and she's going to be able to get past whatever it is that she's working on in there.
I think of all of us here. I think you are her dearest friend. She's going to need you.
Talmud looks at Thorgarn like he's just grown a second head. Me? Her dearest friend?
I look to Griveth, the only other person that has traveled with her the same length of time. I look to Gerithan, our newest companion. I look to Drowned, who came in after Thorgarn. Who but?
Oh, all right.
You and I act like cousins, but the two of you act like brother and sister.
All right. He kind of like takes a big breath and then winces from, the pain in his ribs again, and then works himself back up to his feet. And after the shattering and things have fallen quiet, he'll make his way back, at least initially under the guise of getting Gerithan back.
I imagine that's probably the point where Cantriel comes back into the hall just as you're heading that way and just sort of looks at mostly Thorgarn and says, the crypt's open, whatever you want, it's yours.
I do not go in.
I think Talmud will go in, but the only thing he's going to reclaim is Gerithan. And as he's kind of coming back out, when he passes near Cantriel, he'll kind of ask her in a quiet voice, I think almost just kind of as an aside. Everything worked out? Are you okay? You want to talk about it? Or?
I'll be damned if that bloodsucker can use any part of my father against me.
When I was dying, I saw her, and she warned me that he was going to use her against me. I don't know how. All the ways that I can imagine. I think for the first time I'm going to be very thankful that it's not me who's swinging my weapon,
I have an idea, yeah.
Well,
Thank you for that, by the way.
that's the least I can do. If you need anything, to talk or whatever, someone to yell out if you need it, then I'm here.
I already knew that. And she'll give him a half smile.
All right, then I think maybe we should rest up and then we'll get this fucker.
Yeah, I can breathe fire now, so I really want to use it.
I'm sorry. He kind of like looks around. What? You said what? No?
Dad left a parting gift.
Huh.
Might come in handy. Especially
Sure.
if Griveth's oiled up.
Oh.
Griveth looks up where he's got his little flask of oil and was just started rubbing it in his hands. Gerithan, what are you doing during this whole very personal exchange? And seeing a side of Cantriel that you, let alone anybody else, has never seen.
Yeah, for the majority, he's just kind of been standing against the wall, especially during the conversation between Drown and Thorgarn and Talmud. Just still flipping that coin, the sound ringing out through the hallway. But as everyone sort of gathers out here, he just kind of looks up and he says, "You're like a group. You are all. This. I don't know how to talk. I forgot how to use phrases.
Cut. Back to one. Take two.
I'll do that again. He says, "You are a group unlike anything I've ever seen before."
Lots of ways that phrase means. You just stating the fact, or is that for the good or for the ill?
I don't know if that's for me to say. I've been to a lot of places. I've met a lot of people. But what you have as a group, the bond, it's certainly unlike anything I've ever seen.
Well, truth be told, I don't think either of us, any of us, fits in very well anywhere else. So we're
I
kind
got
of
along famously back in the courts at home.
okay, that makes sense. That's fine. The rest of us, however, he kind of like waits for a moment. See, the rest of us are misfits, so we're kind of a pile of broken things just fused together. That's a terrible analogy. I don't know where I'm going with this.
I think I know what you're trying to say. And I
Good.
understand the feeling. I'm still trying to get back to where I belong.
I've been glad to have you around, Gerithan. You're very handy in a fight, but I'd be lying if I didn't say that I missed Fig.
And I miss where I was, who I was with, but whatever happened, whatever brought me here, I'm just waiting for that arcane force to swap us back. The only reason I'm sticking around, well, outside of I don't know where the hell to go, is that in the unlikely event that suddenly happens again, I wouldn't want your friend to be stranded wherever I was headed. So here I am. And, well, you're good people.
Side note, did we ever, just conversationally figure out where Gerithan was from?
Could always ask.
I don't.
I thought we did. Right? That you were running with mercenaries not too terribly far from here, like up the Sword Coast or something like that?
Yeah, there was a... Yeah. Yeah, when he first popped up, he kind of gives you the rundown.
You were around Neverwinter or something like that, right? Something along those lines. Or was it
I
Baldur's
have
Gate?
a Baldur's Gate,
Baldur's Gate.
company in Baldur's Gate.
That's it. Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, it's been a little bit since we talked about it. It's just refreshing. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I know there was a conversation because Fig had a conversation with Cantriel about what he was seeing, and I know there was a spark in Cantriel when it's like, wait a second, that's what Fig was seeing. And you brought that up that, oh well, I was seeing you guys. So there was the hope of, well, Fig is with whatever you were doing, and hopefully we can figure out a way for you guys to swap back at some point.
So, with these conversations and Cantriel's rage-fueled destruction room, everybody but Cantriel can take the benefits of a short rest. Cantriel spent most of that time in a rage, doing the opposite of resting. Everybody but Cantriel will benefit from a short rest.
But she gets
And
a
you get
level in
her-
Barbarian for it, right?
You all also get the Song of Rest.
Is it the rhythmic beating that we're using as magic?
Yes, it's very percussion oriented. I did actually describe that there was an almost musical sound of the rapier dragging across the mosaic tiles and as they fell. So, however it happens, Cantriel made a Song of Rest. It may be the furthest anybody's pushed the bounds of the meaning of that, but we'll call it a Song of Unrest. But eventually an hour has passed, and you can spend whatever hit dice and whatever for the warlock if you spend any spell slots, etc.
I sure did.
You know now. Well, you know there's a hallway nearby now that you have all 4 pieces of the key. But where you choose to go is entirely up to you and what you choose to do. I know Gerithan has a piece of the key. Who has the key pieces?
I know I had one.
I took, I think I took the last, at least 2, maybe 3 pieces.
Well, the first key was given to you by Thif.
Okay.
The second key was the pedestal that was a stone dragon that you had to fight. I don't remember who grabbed that. I guess it's irrelevant. You all have them.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of not one person doesn't have all the pieces. So
Gerithan will produce the however many pieces he's holding and be like, oh yeah.
It looks like Drown has the first one, so he'll fish it out and hold it up.
I think we got all of these.
Together.
Should we put them together?
Yes. If we want to get to where we need to go and to who we need to get, time to make the key.
He will hold out the pieces that he has.
who's going to assemble the key pieces?
Thorgarn. Why don't you?
You do it. So is there, like, is it a puzzle kind of thing? Does it need to be forged? Like,
It's a puzzle of sorts. There's only 4 pieces, and each piece has a peg and a hole. And it wouldn't take you but a few moments to figure out how these 4 pieces fit together. I've shared the imagery of this in the Dawnbringers section of the Discord, as well as with the Dawnbringers chat. The one thing that you couldn't tell from the picture, though, these pieces have all had this sort of tarnished look to them, almost like a very like aged, almost a black patina to it. But Thorgarn, as you snap the pieces into place and you push the final 4th piece into place, you feel the key shift in your hand just a little bit. Once the 4th piece is in place, all 4 pieces fuse together, forming a singular piece of metal. And you notice that what was this patina, this aging on it, suddenly some of it is on your fingers. There's like almost like a soot. And just from holding it, it seems to be coming off in your hands. And underneath the soot, you see that the key is a shiny bronze color.
I would go and, like pretty much, dwarf who's worked the forge, got, used to that kind of thing. So he would go and just, clean off the entire key.
Just takes you a few moments to do so, and the key is shining as if it were freshly cast.
To the double door, then.
With Griveth leading the way, illuminating the way with Dawnbringer held aloft, you all backtrack down the long hallway to the double dragon doors.
Before we...
See, I heard it that time. I didn't hear it previously. I saw it in the chat. That time I heard it. Double dragon.
Open this door, is there any preparations or healing that we need to do? I know we just rested up, but I don't know how we're all faring.
I'm fine. Thanks for asking.
I could certainly use some. Though I feel much better than I did before we took some time, I'm still not feeling great.
Well, then, cousin, allow me to assist you. And I will lay on hands for 20.
Oh, that's much better, Thorgarn. Thank you very much for that.
All right. You stand in the room with the curved section of wall and the metal box on the wall with the keyhole around which is carved the imagery of dragons. Thorgarn, you have the key.
Click.
You place the key into the lock. You twist. And you hear a heavy metallic shoo-choom. That's where we're going to take our break. Just a few minutes early, since this is a very clear scene transition. We're going to go ahead and take about a 10-minute break here. Yeah, we'll see you on the other side with the continuation of this session 21. Thank you to everybody who has joined us already in the chat. And, of course, thank you to the wonderful generosity of those who have already donated. Sorry, I was trying to vamp while I was fixing my timer, but it's not working right now. So we'll just watch the clock. We'll be back in just about 10 minutes. Please stick around and we'll see you on the other side. And we're back. I don't know why everybody suddenly struck a pose, but it was funny.
Are we voguing?
So, as we left off, Thorgarn, you placed the bronze key, dragon key, into the lock, and you turned it. As you do so, you hear a heavy ka-thunk. And before we begin this next section, I want to make it clear to all of you that everything that is seen, heard, and narrated, you all are experiencing. As the key turns with a thunk, it reverberates, turning into a ka-thunk, thunk, 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 thunk. The sound of an empty wagon that creaks and groans as it rolls along the road, bouncing and skipping over bumps and roots. A lone driver holds the reins of the 4-horse team. Their face is obscured in shadow by the heavy hooded cloak that drapes across their shoulders. In the silvery light of the near full moon, wisps of mist swirl in eddies in the wake of the wagon. Glowing eyes of unknown nocturnal creatures watch from the edge of the tree line as the mysterious stranger and their wagon passes them by. As the mist swirls and eddies kicked up by the wagon, we see a new scene. There are two individuals sitting across from a familiar-looking table in a large, magnificent great hall that many of you once dined in on a hill in Saltmarsh, in the home of the Lady Vantage. One of these figures is the Lady Vantage. She wears a simple gown of shimmering mithril. The other figure, sitting opposite her, has a large frame, a cloak draped across their shoulders, their head and face concealed in shadow. The two of them are in the midst of a conversation. The Lady Vantage seeming to be telling this other figure of a story. It was centuries ago, many centuries ago, that the great worm Chardalon laid waste, destroying the cult of druids from the Church of the Elements, killing many of their members. But it was their leader, Died the Wise, who was able to use her ancient magic and the natural magic in the standing stones of an ancient circle of stones to trap the dragon and cut out his heart. In the aftermath of this battle, to protect her people, Died magically transformed the wild animals of the wood into humans. Many of these humans coexisted. These new humans coexisted with the humans of the area, and over time they began to intermingle and intermarry, and their line was passed down through the centuries. Died the wise. The very one who cut the heart from Ashardalon is known to have had 3 living descendants. Well, 2 now. One was a middle-aged woman, a human woman, who was last seen in the region of Oakhurst, not far from a sunken, ancient fallen temple of Ashardalon. In fact, she played a part in slaying the other descendant, her own brother, a druid who had turned evil by the influences in this temple. The other descendant of died, still living, is also a human. And as fate would have it, for a brief time all 3 of these descendants were in the same place, and it was this descendant who shattered and destroyed the Gothias tree. A man by the name of Langsmore. There's suddenly a shift in the scene. We hear the sounds of the wagon once again upon the road. The moonlight illuminates the now calm battlefield at the edge of the circle of standing stones. Here and there, small fires persist, some barely more than glowing embers. Large swaths of the telltale signs of dragon's breath. The smoke from one of the fires billows in the wind. The scene shifts again. Once again, we are in the dining hall of the Lady Vantage in the manor. This time, she wears robes of iridescent emerald. Sitting near her, the remnants of a meal before them, is a dwarf. Dan, for this scene, I would like you to roleplay as Lauren, the dwarf.
And remind me, you said they had sort of a Slavic accent from that region?
Yes, the dwarves of that region are a bit more Slavic.
Okay.
So, now that the meal is done, we'll have our conversations. You and your clan have been seeking out new locations for mining operations. This is true, yes?
Yes, that's correct. The few of us that have left.
What is it that...
Oh, sorry, please.
What is it, Yeah, see, you're forcing me into that accent. I play too many characters in that accent.
Yes.
What are you attempting to... What type of mine are you looking to set up? Anything in particular?
Well, we have a few specialists, but anything of any ore of value that we can find, ore, gemstones, useful metals, even depending on the stone, there can be lucrative opportunity for. We are prospectors looking to see what we can find and where we might be able to start again.
This, yes. I had expected as much. No doubt you are familiar in the region with Manistrode Copperlocks. She's young, has not yet been placed in charge of any particular operations, but there's talk that they're seeking to expand the mining operations along the coast further south in an area called Saltmarsh.
Well, I don't know much from marsh, but if there is enough stone and potential for finding useful materials, we can certainly take a look. If you seem very well informed. In particular, there are, it is almost foolish to mention, there are very rare metals, better for working into weapons, armor, better than steel even. Very rare though. Mithril true silver, or the dark adamantine. I know people who can work these things. This is not simple skill. If we can find source.
Yes, you are correct. I make it my business to know what is happening throughout the region. The affairs of dwarves and elves and men, I make them my business. The operation that Copperlocks may be placed in charge of, it's primarily silver mines, and they'll be working under direct conscription of King Scotty of Keoland. I doubt that fits within you and your band of prospectors' preferred way of working, but I know of a place where there are very rich veins of adamantine.
Now you have my attention.
Do you know the Goliaths of the mountain?
I know of them. I have met maybe one or two, but Goliath tribes keep to themselves in the highest peaks. It's not usual to run across them.
I will draw you a map. You and your prospector friends, you head into the mountains north of here. And in less than a 10-day, you will encounter a very reclusive tribe of Goliaths. Some of them are very standoffish and will not welcome you. But I know of at least a couple that will be likely to accept your friendship.
If what you say is true, and they have access to adamantine, Goliaths are not known for mining, perhaps they would be willing to allow us to do our work.
I am certain that if you are able to find the right Goliath or two to champion your cause, you may find exactly what you are looking for. I will, of course, be your patron to set you up on this expedition, outfitting you with all of the supplies and everything that you will need in order to head north.
Very generous of you. What do you expect from this arrangement before we go any further?
Well, I have, it is no secret, allied myself with King Scotty and side with him in the wars. So, I will, of course, request a portion of any adamantine that you are able to extract and refine, so that we may strengthen the king's armies with adamantine weapons and armor.
You, as well informed as you are, of course, know that loads of adamantine tend to be relatively very small, so a portion that you ask may not be much, but what you can make with it will be remarkable.
If necessary, we will make what we need to for select champions, then.
Then I suppose we have a deal.
Very well. And the rest of the she leaves you to finish your drink, and you see there are, you have, since your time here at the manor, you have been tended to by kobold servants wearing little waistcoats and cravats. They keep you your mug full. Eventually, she returns with a chest full of gold and platinum, some instructions, and a cloth map drawn out, indicating exactly where you should go into the mountains, and the name of the tribe of the Goliaths that you should seek out. Eventually, you are sent on your way. After the Lady Vantage closes the door, we hear a voice, deep and resonant, from behind her. You play a dangerous game. That dwarf and his clan of prospectors, they face almost certain death. The Goliaths will not sit idly by and allow their sacred lands to be mined. This will have a high cost for many. She takes a deep breath in. I am well aware of the cost, my lord. And as we shift into the next scene, I'm going to do a quick bookkeeping, as we just got raided by Indigo Chameleon. Thank you so much for the raid, which of course earns the Dawnbringers another domain die, which means I have to do a quick shift here. There we go. So thank you so much for the raid. Hope you stick around and follow the channel. The scene shifts once again to that moonlit scene. The smell of death, the pervasive metallic scent of spilled blood, the deeper visceral smell of disemboweled entrails, the heavy odor of burnt flesh. These are the first signs that they are in the right place. As they draw the wagon closer to the center of the carnage, they pay no attention to the corpses as they roll over them. The scene shifts once again. In this scene, V, you will be playing the part of Melody. The Lady Vantage, wearing a floral patterned dress, sits on a patio with a glassed in sort of sunroom. Chairs and tables that seem to almost have grown there into those shapes, as opposed to being made line the area. The table has a couple bottles of fine, very rare, and very expensive elven wine that is opened. A few glasses that show that those sitting in this room have been drinking together. In this room, besides the Lady Vantage, are two elves, Melody and Calamicus. I need you to understand how dangerous this is. You understand that once you leave here, there will be no turning back. Calamicus takes another sip of golden wine. And for perhaps the fifth or sixth time, seems to hold it up to the light and study it. But Melody, you know, this is just his way of stalling as he thinks about things. That's something that we have talked about at great length. He looks over at you, Melody.
The greatest concern are the children.
You were wise to make the decision to leave Cantriel behind. She's not old enough. And once again, I assure you, I will watch out for her. I will keep her safe. I will keep her out of danger.
She's impulsive. She's reckless. She's more stubborn than this one. And she nods over to Calamicus.
He just gives a sort of nod and a just look of a, well, yeah.
She'll want to know. At some point. The child's been asking questions since she could mutter a word.
When the time is right, I will reveal to her what she needs to know. You understand that there are other pieces that are being moved around in this complex situation, tactics, and things that have been laid for many years, and that will be continued to be laid for many more years. I dare say you are not pawns in this. You are integral pieces. But you are pieces in this nonetheless.
Tapestry has many threads.
Indeed. And every thread is an important piece of the whole. You need to know before you set off that from wherever he resides, Bashardalon's influence is growing with the chromatic dragons. We've been seeing more activity. A young black dragon known as Nightscale has been seen recently hunting near the remains of what was once called Kundrakar. There are many more factions and individuals that are working under the influence of the great red worm. You must be wary of them. And you must keep a watchful eye on Octavio and Sonata. I fear in their lessons they have shown a bit too much eagerness and interest in the lore of Ashardalon and his rise to power. Once you set off on this mission, it will be up to you, as their parents, of course, to guide them further.
Guide her back to my family in the Feywild. Cantriel will be safer there.
I still have connections in the Feywild.
My mother is one of the ladies. If you find her, she'll find a place for her. But don't let it be known she's ours. She's got talent. She can play different instruments. She's got a voice like a nightingale. She's rather entertaining in the right moods.
Well, what I remember of her from last I saw her, she does have her moods. But I must tell you, Melody, I will do my best to guide her to the Feywild. But you know Cantriel's spirit. She may resist. And depending on how things work out, she may follow in your footsteps.
Something tells me she's going to be the one to surpass them.
Well, you all need to get your rest. You will set off in the morning, and I don't know when we'll see each other again.
Do a favor for me.
Name it.
Tell her she was loved.
I will do this, but I believe you will also be able to tell her yourself. The conversation continues for a little bit, but it begins to grow muffled as the scene shifts once again. The wagon draws to a stop. A slender hand, pale even in the moonlight, reaches down and pulls the handbrake. The mysterious stranger climbs down from the boards quietly. The horses snort and whinny uneasily, their breath visible in the chilled air. The pale hand of the stranger trails lightly across the flank of the closest horse, and the four horses become instantly calmed and quiet. The stranger walks softly, almost gliding silently across the darkened grasses, moving toward a large mound the size of a small, collapsed hut. It glistens wetly in the light of the moon. The scene shifts once again. This is a sitting room. fire is lit in the hearth. It is night. The Lady Vantage wears a robe of blue velvet. She sits in a dark leather wingback chair. But she is not alone. Sitting on the opposite side of the hearth in an identical dark wingback chair is a Githzerai man, Gerithan. Gerithan, you arrived in Saltmarsh earlier this day to a town that was in disarray. Strangely, as you came into the harbor, you found that much of the harbor was blocked by what remained of a large dragon turtle that was being systematically disassembled. Much of the town was in various stages of disrepair, but you saw humans and dwarves working together to repair the town. Before you ventured up to the Lady Vantage's manor, you caught bits and pieces of conversation. You heard occasional snatches of unfamiliar names, always uttered with a hiss of contempt. The one name in particular was that of the Dawnbringers. Occasionally somebody would speak well of them, but most of the townsfolk, whenever the name was brought up, would hush them. You sit now in the sitting room with the Lady Vantage. Gerithan, I am pleased that you have honored our agreement. They've traveled across the sea to meet me here.
There was no storm this time.
I worried that when I asked you to travel the sea, that you would refuse for that very reason.
I owe a debt greater than I could possibly repay to you, my lady.
And yet, it is now time for me to call upon you that favor.
Name it.
You have been spending quite a bit of time making quite a name for yourself in and around Baldur's Gate.
Aye. Company's done very well. Would have been lost to the sea if not for you.
Have you been north?
How far north do you mean?
How far north have you been?
Never so far as past Waterdeep.
Where I need you to go is further than Waterdeep. More than twice as far north as Waterdeep is from Baldur's Gate. What I am asking of you is to travel northeast of Neverwinter to a region known as the Desserin Valley. The northern reaches of the valley, you will find a small town called Oakhurst. The town is now thriving and prosperous, but outside of town there lies a rift in the earth, at the bottom of which lies a ruined temple. In this temple is a passageway that is laid uncovered. It will lead you into the Underdark. There, you will travel east, and you will meet up with a band of drow from an organization known as Brigandath. They will guide you deeper. You will avoid the city of Menzel-Baranzan. You will travel until you reach a location that I need you to find. It is an important hidden refuge known as the Adamantine Bridge, the Adamantine Fortress.
Adamantine Fortress.
I need you there. I need you to become the bridge, the gateway, to bring a friend there.
Friend?
Who it is of no consequence to you right now. Only that you make it there.
This fortress, do you know of its origin?
I do.
Is it from home?
As you say this, she stands up and crosses the 6 feet towards where you are sitting in your chair. She crouches down next to you. And she places a hand, one hand on your leg and one hand on your hand where it rests on the arm of the chair. As she does so, for a moment, you see her mutter something. You hear a brief incantation, and her eyes glow with a brilliant light. And what she says next, you have no memory of. You are seeing now for the first time. Her voice takes on an almost ethereal quality. Gerithan, you will remember every detail of what I have just told you regarding how you are to get to the Adamantine Fortress, where to enter the Underdark, whom you are to meet up with, and what routes to take. But you will not remember why you are going there, only that you must get there. Because I have told you that this is the only way for you to get home to Limbo. You will believe this to be true with all of your heart. Her gaze shifts slightly, and she smiles. And you can't help but smile back, because she's just told you this Adamantine Fortress is your way home.
Lady, this is more a gift than a favor.
It is how I choose for you to repay your debt. I would see you safely home. You may rest here for tonight, and then you may head off. She stands up, she turns to leave the room, and as she does, she turns back and looks back at you and says, it was clearly fate that we met on that stormy night Safe travels to home, Gerithan. And she turns and leaves the room. As she begins walking up the stairs towards her room, she's joined by a cloaked figure. It is a shame that you must break his heart like that. She falters in her step for a moment, takes a deep breath, and says, I know, but Figure 2 Prometheus must return to his true home. He must learn the truth about himself. The scene shifts again. The pale hands reach up to the cloak and pull the hood back, revealing the handsome face of a clean-shaven man in his mid-40s, his salt and pepper hair falling loosely around his shoulders. His eyes are wide and tears glisten as they spill down his cheeks. As he drops to his knees, he cries out, My Lord Shadalan, I am sorry that I could not be here before your heart was cut from your chest. Would that I had the power to avenge you now, I would. But I am here now, my lord, to claim the heart that once beat so strongly inside of you. With it, I will raise up an army, and we will honor and we will serve you, preparing the way for when you return from whence you have gone. All will be done in your honor, my lord Shadalan. The scene again shifts. Thorgarn, in this scene you will be playing a dwarf, whose identity will be revealed momentarily. A moment ago, Thorgarn, you held the bronze key in your hand. You turned it in the lock. But now, you look at that same hand. It's different. It's younger. And it is absolutely covered in blood. You are looking through eyes that are not your own. You can hear the faint echoes of voices around you sort of swimming into reality as you hear voices that somehow seem familiar to you. As your senses begin to return, you see a group of wounded and weary adventurers standing around you. A human woman, a fighter, runs over to you and kneels down, her own face cut, bleeding, her hair with flecks of blood in it and disheveled, her armor bearing the dents and scratches of recent battle. You did it, Griveth! You are indeed a hero!
What did I do?
Another dwarf comes limping over to you and clasps your shoulder. Griveth! You holy bastard! I thought he was going to get you there for a minute, but you got him good.
I look around. Do I see any sign of a recent fight?
As you look around, you sort of take a step and you kick something. You hear a metallic sound, something heavy at your feet. You look down and you see the broad, double-bladed head of a battle axe. But right near the head, the haft of the handle, it's broken. Your eyes shift to the left, and you see the body of a man. His face clean-shaven and pale. His salt and pepper hair lying in disarray, drenched in blood around his head. The broken haft of your battle axe, piercing his heart, driven through his back and into the ground by your own hands.
And this makes me a hero? Looks like I attacked a man from behind.
It's through his chest.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought... My apologies. So does he look familiar? Do I have any recollection of who this is?
There's a familiarity that's conflicting in your mind, both with the mind of Thorgarn and the mind of who you know to be Father Griveth. The mind who you seem to share at the moment. And you know that this is the vampire that you have hunted to this very place, to this ruined courtyard, in this small grove, in this ancient buried temple. This is the vampire Gulthias. And you, Griveth, have just driven a wooden stake through his heart, impaling him to the ground, and killing him.
Well, this is a day to celebrate and remember, then.
I'll see that. We'll be drinking lots of mead in your honor.
Should we not go further and make sure the body is truly destroyed? It's more than just impaling the heart, is it not?
An elderly, gnomish man comes into view.
Well, you know what she said. She said that we were to leave him where he lied. If we took the stake from his heart, we run the risk that he would revive. We need to go and tell her that it is finished. She'll want to know right away. And, Griveth, it's been a long time. I want to go home. I want to see my daughter, Shimona, again.
Well, if that is what we were asked, and the mission is over, then indeed, let us see our families again. Let us celebrate.
And the others begin to help everybody gather up their stuff and gather up the broken axe head, and you slowly leave this ruined grove as you head back to the Lady Vantage who gave you this quest. The scene shifts once again. The moon has begun to sink lower toward the horizon, its silvery light lengthening the shadows of the standing stones. The shadows reach toward the stranger and the Dragonheart as if attempting to grapple them and hold them fast. The stranger's voice carries across the battlefield as he sings his incantations, his hands moving in arcane patterns, tracing sigils in the air. He magically levitates the lifeless heart into the back of the wagon. As its incredible weight settles into the wagon, he quickly sets to work securing the tarps and ropes across his precious cargo. The empty wagon creaks and groans as it rolls across the road, bouncing and skipping over bumps and roots, and he drives the 4-horse team back in the direction where he came. Talmud. Jeremy. In this scene, you will be role-playing as Talmud's grandfather. A fire burns brightly in the fireplace, causing shadows to dance around the room. In the warm light of the fire, we see a small table that is laden with half-eaten plates of food and more than a couple of empty bottles of Kirgin. A trail of discarded clothing, a mix of heavy leather boots and leggings, combined with delicate silks and linens, leads to a pile of furs in front of the hearth. A beautiful, dark-haired elven woman lies next to and entwined with a young, stout dwarven man. Her head resting upon his chest. I wish I could stay here forever, feeling our hearts beat as one toward that dawn.
I want nothing more in the world than for you to stay.
And you do know that this woman's name is Gerithan.
He kind of like runs his hands through her dark, kind of silky hair. Like sees how like the firelight plays like on the strands of it in its sheen. What are we going to do, you and I?
I don't know what fate it is that's brought us together. But I fear it's those same fates that will not allow us to stay together.
Is that fate talking? Or your people?
Probably more of my people. I have a strong, powerful lineage. A heredity that my family would not like to see sullied. Their words, not mine, Tordak.
Solid. Sounds about right.
Hey. I wanted to be here. This is no accident. You know that I was only showing interest in Horm so that I would make you jealous.
Well, it worked. A little too well, perhaps. And he kind of like touches the side of her face.
Tordak. I have to leave you.
There's no reason to leave yet. You can stay. For now, at least, until...
Until what?
Time.
Until your family or my family intercedes and tells us that we don't belong together?
You and I both know that that's an inevitability, that it's going to happen. Why rush it? Why not take the time that we've got
together.
Thordak, you dwarves are long-lived, but not nearly as long as us elves. It's Tordak, you are going to sire a very powerful bloodline. And your ancestors will bring such glory to your clan. That could not happen if you and I stayed together.
You sound just like the rest of them. You'd rather that I choose clan over what it is that we have.
She pulls away from you. She sits up. Most of her body is silhouetted, a thin line of firelight, creating an edge light over her shoulders and her hair. If we stay together, more will be lost than gained. You cannot even know. Know this, Tordak. I do not regret this. Neither should you, ever. She stands and begins gathering up her clothing and quickly pulling on linens and silks. I didn't want it to end this way. I had hoped to leave you, Tordak, without breaking your heart.
This was something you had planned all along? You knew that this would be the outcome? Was all of this a game for you in the beginning?
No, it was never a game.
I feel as though one has been played, and I only just now realized that I've lost.
She finishes pulling on her boots. She walks over to where you still sit in the furs and crouches down. Please, Tordak, remember the love that we had. Remember the playful rivalry between Orm and you, as I vied for your affections. Remember our love. And as her eyes seem to catch the firelight and hold them, looking deep into your eyes, Tordak, she says, remember the name of Gerithan. With happiness and only a tinge of guilt at love lost. Remember only the best of times that we had.
I will never forget you, my love.
You are so very tired. You can't help yourself but to fall asleep, Tordak, as you begin to dream the dreams that you remember of the love and beautiful relationship that you had with the mysterious dark-haired elf, Gerithan. The scene shifts once again. The waning silver moon crests high over the deep defile carved into the earth. A single spire of carved stone reaches up out of the shadowy depths toward the moon. From out of a cave at the base of the defile emerges a wagon driven by 4 dark horses. A lone figure, cloaked and hooded, holds the reins in his pale hands as he drives the heart of a Chardalon towards the Nightfang Spire. Somewhere far across the sea, in a manor house on a hill, an elven woman with dragon eyes stares out her balcony window across the sea in the direction of the Sword Coast. Without a sound, she is joined on the balcony by a hooded figure.
Well, it has been a long time coming. But it seems as though the last of the pieces are falling into place.
Yes. It is not going to be much longer. But I fear for them. Each and every one of them.
I know you do. I have watched over them where I could. It has been a time since I last saw them, and it will be a time before I see them again.
But hopefully they remember me with a fondness. As he pulls back the cloak and you see the red-haired teenager, Baron, standing there, who you remember from Oakhurst and who accompanied you to Blazing Dell. Or rather followed you to Blazing Dell. Yes. You do well to watch them, but you know as the end draws near, you will not be able to intervene. The ban of the unborn will prevent you, my lord.
Yes, I know.
And as she looks back at him, he no longer looks like the human teenage young adult Baron. But what you see standing next to the Lady Vantage is a dragonborn with scales that look like platinum coins, a symbol of Bahamut emblazoned on his chest.
Even there, the gods are forbidden from intervening.
And that is where we are going to end tonight's session. I'm going to need somebody to go out there and pick up all that lore that was dropped tonight. Whew. All right. That was a very different session. I hope you guys enjoyed that. None of these guys knew what was coming. Nobody knew if they were playing themselves or if they were playing other characters, only that they might be called upon to play other characters. We're gonna have to make sure that Scotty goes back and at least watches the last half of this game, if nothing else. And I certainly hope some of you were taking notes, because like I said, there were some major lore bits and things that have been revealed in this scene, or collection of scenes. Next week, assuming all of the players are available, we'll kind of play it by ear. Excuse me, because you never know. Things do come up, as they did with Scotty. But assuming everybody is available, next Thursday night will be the finale of Season 4, Heart of the Nightfang Spire. And we'll see how that plays out. I do want to just say, first of all, I got to double check and see, make sure I didn't miss any domain dice there. I did not. I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody who joined us tonight. I hope you are enjoying our story that we are telling collaboratively. And I know that I just love playing with this group. This is absolutely just incredible collaborative. This is just pure collaborative storytelling with these people. We all trust each other enough to be able to take our characters, our scenes, and go places with them. And I love seeing where we are on this journey of almost to the end of 4 seasons with, well, at this point, half of the people here have been here for 4 seasons. And then Ted's been here for 3 seasons. Dan's been here for a season and a half. And Zach's been here for about 5 sessions. But this was a fun session for me. I often talk about how I don't do much in the way of prep. I improv things. I keep things in my mind. There was too much going on here. I had pages of notes to keep the story devices going and to make sure I didn't miss anything. But it was all worth it. So as always, thank you to all of you amazing audience. Be sure to tune in tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern for a vampire story of a different nature for Alan's Curse of Strahd game that will be taking place here. And then now this isn't going to be broadcast, but I'm still going to tell you about it. Next Tuesday, V and I, along with Goblin Katie and Kai and DM Jazzy Hands and the Dr. B, we are having our unbroadcast session 0. And then 2 weeks after that will be the first session of our bi-weekly campaign, mini campaign of Harper's Tale, Hope and Redemption. We've been talking about it for ages, and we're finally only less than a week away from being able to get together as DM and players and sort of lay the groundwork for that. So you're going to want to mark your calendars for that. Yeah, so the last thing, of course, that I want to say is just a huge and heartfelt thank you to Scotty, Dan, V, Zach, M, Ted, and Jeremy, without whom it would just be me talking to myself for, well, tonight, 2.5 hours. I love you guys. You are just amazing. And everybody, we'll see you next time. We're going to go ahead and end the stream the same way we end every stream. And you can say it with me if you want.
Metadata.